In 2003 in Texas, Marcus is in his prison cell waiting for his execution. He's visited by Dr. Kogan, who asks him if he wants to donate his body to science. Marcus agrees if she pays him with a kiss, which he steals from her without waiting for an answer. After he signs the paperwork, he is given the lethal injection and dies while looking at Kogan. Early in the 21st century, a military defense program known as Skynet becomes self-aware and decides society is a threat, so it attacks humanity on an event later known as Judgment Day. The survivors then begin working together to fight, so Skynet responds by building Terminators, robots programmed to hunt down humans. In 2018, many rebels believe that their key to salvation is a warrior named John, who is currently approaching a Skynet facility with his team. The security system immediately opens fire on them, so they land the choppers and start defensive maneuvers while John shoots a Terminator caught by a helicopter. Then John and a few rebels climb down a hole to enter the abandoned facility, where they're soon attacked by a big security robot. By shooting all together, they quickly bring it down and keep going, kicking down a door to access an old lab. They're disgusted to find a bunch of human bodies used for experiments, including Marcus. The ones inside cells are still capable of moving, but they only talk in growls. Checking the computer, they discover this was a new project to create a new model of Terminator and send all the intel to the leaders. Afterward, John returns to the surface to check on the troops guarding their choppers only to discover they've all been killed. There's a large Skynet aircraft flying away, so he rushes to a helicopter to go after it. As soon as he takes off, the facility blows up and kills all the other rebels, leaving John as the only survivor from the mission. The shockwave causes John's helicopter to lose control and crash on the ground. John is fine and tries to take a moment to grieve, but he ends up attacked by the Terminator he damaged earlier. After being thrown to the ground, John opens fire, only for the robot to throw him against the fallen helicopter. Its weapons are still working though, so John quickly takes over and destroys the Terminator with a few shots. Soon John is picked up by another group of rebels, and shortly after he leaves, it's revealed that Marcus has woken up and survived the explosion. Unaware that he's in the future now, Marcus takes the clothes from a dead rebel and wanders away to find civilization. Meanwhile, John asks to be taken to Resistance headquarters, and when his request is denied, he jumps out of the chopper and swims down to sneak inside a submarine. Here he meets with the Resistance leaders, who don't believe the prophecy about John being their savior. Thanks to the information John's team sent from the facility, the leaders have discovered a hidden frequency that could potentially shut down Skynet for good, so John volunteers to test it on more advanced machines. The Resistance has also intercepted a transmission from Skynet with a kill list warning that all the leaders will be dead in 4 days. John is second on the list, and in first place is Kyle, the guy who will travel to the past to become John's dad. Afterward, John returns to his home base and learns that they've managed to retrieve a long robot claw, which refuses to be subdued. They've already burned out his transmitter to stop it from contacting Skynet, but it can still receive signals. The rebels activate the software from the facility, and after some struggle, the claw finally stops moving. The team immediately ties it down, but they also discover that if they turn off the signal it'll be awake again, so it must be played constantly. While the claw scans John's face, he announces he'll test the software on something bigger. Meanwhile, Marcus makes his way through the desert and arrives in Los Angeles, only to discover the city is in ruins. As he walks down the streets, he sees a figure in the distance and tries to make contact, but it's a robot that immediately opens fire on him. Suddenly Marcus is pushed to the side by a mysterious guy, who lets the robot explode a few things and waits for it to be on the right spot to activate his trap and leave him hanging. This guy turns out to be Kyle, who tells Marcus to follow him to survive. The duo runs away as the robot opens fire again, hiding inside an abandoned building with a girl named Star. When the robot manages to free itself and comes after them, Star drops another trap on it, crushing it. Afterward, Kyle threatens Marcus with a weapon, accusing him of killing the rebel he took that jacket from. Marcus immediately disarms him and gives the gun back to prove he's good, so now Kyle has to explain Judgment Day to him. At that moment, a Skynet aircraft passes by and brings down the building, but the trio moves to safety just in time. Traveling at night isn't recommended, so the group rests for now and Marcus teaches Kyle how to disarm an enemy. Marcus also manages to fix an old radio that picks up a message from John, whose daily broadcasts are focused telling any survivors out there about the Resistance and teaching people how to attack a Terminator. The next morning, Marcus finds an old car and fixes it so they can leave. An argument ensues because Kyle wants to find John in the east, but Marcus wants to head north to Skynet to learn what happened to him. They're suddenly interrupted by a Skynet scout approaching them. The trio immediately gets in the car and drives away as fast as possible, but the scout never opens fire, it just scans their faces while Kyle kicks it. Eventually the scout flies away on its own, so Marcus throws a tool at it to make it crash. All this unusual activity in Los Angeles appears on the rebels' radars, thus John sends some people to investigate. Sometime later, Marcus' group stops at a destroyed gas station to look for fuel, only to suddenly be surrounded by a group of survivors with their weapons out. They don't want to help, explaining they keep their heads down to avoid getting Skynet's attention. However, an old lady cuts in and shares some food with them. Kyle and Star immediately dig in, but it seems Marcus doesn't need it. Suddenly the building is attacked by a robot known as Harvester, which grabs the old lady before opening fire. Everyone starts running away and getting into their vehicles, and a few people get killed in the process. Some of the survivors manage to get on a truck and refuse to bring Marcus' group along, but their vehicle ends up getting shot by the Harvester too. Marcus sneaks behind the building and watches the Harvester drop the old lady in a Skynet aircraft with a bunch of other prisoners. Getting an idea, the trio gets on a truck with the tank open, leaving a trail of fuel behind them as they crash through the fence and hit the Harvester's legs, making it fall. Then they leave the tank with the robot and drive away so that Kyle can shoot the tank, but it does nothing. Luckily Star has a flare and they throw it at the fuel trail. The flames quickly reach the tank and cause a huge explosion, giving the group time to escape. Unfortunately the Harvester comes out of the flames and releases two Moto Terminators that start chasing the trio. There are lots of abandoned cars on the road, so Kyle has to drive through them as he speeds up to avoid the enemy. The Moto Terminators easily dodge all the flying pieces of cars while Kyle moves to the back of the truck to open fire. One of the Moto Terminators gets shot and crashes against an old bus as Marcus turns the truck around to escape in the opposite direction. The second Moto Terminator makes a huge jump over the truck to catch up and shoots at them, almost making Kyle fall off. Thankfully the others catch him just in time and Star gives him another gun so he can shoot down the second bike. Unfortunately it isn't enough to stop it and the Moto Terminator starts a fire on the back of the truck with a precise shot, so Marcus begins driving like a maniac to put it off while Kyle drops the cargo ball, using it to capture the bike. They make it hit all the abandoned cars on the road, but by the time they reach the bridge, a Skynet aircraft shoots at the ground to block their way. The sudden stop causes the bike to fly and hit the aircraft, dragging the truck in the process. The movement makes Kyle and Star fall off and get captured by the Harvester, so a furious Marcus jumps off the truck with an axe to follow them right before the vehicle explodes. Next Marcus begins heating the side of the cell with his axe, only to be captured by the Harvester. At that moment, the aircraft sent by John's team finally arrive and open fire on the Skynet robots. The Harvester takes damage and lets go of Marcus, who falls into the river. Skynet immediately opens fire on the rebel planes and a chase ensues, but the enemy is much faster and quickly shoots down the rebel aircrafts. Pilot Blair ejects her seat just in time while the Skynet vehicles fly away. Moments later, Marcus comes out of the river and notices that Blair got stuck on a tower. Marcus climbs up and gives her a knife to help her free herself, catching her before she falls. They agree to go together to the rebel base, and they only stop at night to rest. Soon a group of survivors comes out and takes Blair's gun, ready to attack her. Blair reacts fast and manages to knock down two aggressors, but there are too many of them and overpower her. At that moment Marcus comes out too and breaks a piece of wood on a guy to make him let go of Blair, then he proceeds to beat everyone up. After stabbing a man, he uses another one as a shield from an incoming bullet before beating up the shooter. When he's about to kill the last guy, Blair shoots his leg first to keep him at bay. In the meantime, John and a friend want to test the new signal on bigger machines, so they create an explosion to get the enemy's attention. When a Skynet aircraft arrives, they turn on the signal and watch how the plane begins wobbling and slowly goes down until it crashes on the ground. John immediately blows it up with a missile and then contacts the resistance leaders to give them the good news and make a plan of attack. However, when John mentions the human prisoners, the leaders hang up on him. Speaking of the prisoners, they're taken to a huge Skynet facility and locked up behind fences. When one of them tries to escape by climbing, the robots shoot him down. Later, while they're being moved around, Kyle steals a piece of metal, only to be detected by a robot guard and taken away from Star. In the morning, Blair and Marcus arrive at the perimeter that protects the rebel base with a bunch of magnetized mines made specially to deal with Terminators. Blair leads Marcus on a safe path, but suddenly mine attaches itself to Marcus' leg and explodes. The rebels soon take him into the base while Marcus keeps having flashbacks of Kogan and his execution. A doctor manages to stabilize him, only for one of the rebels to then knock him out. When Marcus wakes up, he's chained up while the others watch him with worry. They tell him his brain and heart are the only organs he's got left and they want to know who built him, but Marcus insists he's human. At that moment they make him look down and Marcus is shocked to discover he's become a cyborg Terminator thanks to the donation of his body. John doesn't trust him, so Marcus tries to tell him Kyle is alive and was captured as proof he's on their side, but John insists on keeping him chained up. Blair tries to defend him saying Marcus saved her, but the others insist it could be a trap. Afterward, a rebel shoots at Marcus as revenge for losing his brother to the machines. Before he can do actual damage, Blair comes in and shoots Marcus too as a trick to prove she can watch over him. As soon as the other rebel leaves, Blair drops the chains and frees Marcus using a small torch. Soon an alarm echoes in the base and guards come after them, so Blair shoots a vent open and escapes through the tunnel with Marcus right before the rebels open fire. Marcus covers Blair's body with his own and gets his shoulder melted, but they survive and manage to get out. Outside, Blair activates a bunch of mines on purpose to use the explosions as cover while they run away. The guards soon arrive and open fire, so they have to hide behind a destroyed wall. Then Marcus puts his hand out as bait, and while the guards open fire on him, Blair takes out their light. They try running again, but the rebels never stop shooting their way and Blair falls, hurting her leg. Marcus moves more slowly now that he's helping her, and soon they're reached by an explosion. When the smoke clears, the rebels are shocked to see it's only Blair and Marcus has escaped. While Blair is captured, Marcus steals a bike and drives away as fast as possible, making a huge jump over the fence and crashing. Now Marcus has to cross the forest on foot, and the rebels on the chopper manage to land quite a few shots on him before bombarding the whole area. Afterward, the helicopter searches the river for Marcus' body, only to suddenly be attacked by long robot claws. A rebel is immediately dragged underwater and killed, and soon the helicopter starts losing control as John and his co-pilot have to concentrate on fighting the enemy. They quickly manage to push it out, but the chopper is still damaged and falls into the water as well. John tries to save his partner, yet the robot gets to him first and kills him underwater. Then John comes out of the helicopter and starts shooting at all the incoming robots as he tries to reach the shore. He manages to kill a few of them, but he's starting to run out of bullets and there are too many enemies to fight. When a robot is about to jump on John, Marcus comes out of the water and fights it hand to hand, defeating it with the help of a shot from John. Since John is still unsure if he should trust him, Marcus offers him a deal. If John lets him go, Marcus will grant him access to Skynet's facility to find Kyle while he searches for his creator. John accepts and lets him go. Afterward, John interrogates Blair and hears her opinion of Marcus, deciding to let her go. In the morning, John calls the leaders and asks them to delay the attack because he'll save Kyle. The leaders refuse, and since John disobeys, they relieve him from his duties. The other rebels still show support for John, so he sends one last final broadcast with a hopeful message before leaving the base. Later, in the middle of the road, John plays music loudly to attract a moto Terminator and uses a rope trap to make it crash. Then he removes the AI chip and hacks into the bike to use it as his own transport. In the evening, Marcus shows up at the Skynet facility and the cameras don't see him as an enemy. He easily sneaks inside and accesses the computer, using it to disable the security and find Kyle's location, which he sends to John. Then Marcus checks the database and discovers articles about his execution. He also learns that Kogan died from cancer and that Skynet bought her lab with all her research. Suddenly a bunch of information floods into his brain and causes him to have a headache before passing out. At that moment, the rebel leaders try to send their attack, but none of the rebel subgroups support them without John. Their submarine is soon found by the enemy and gets blown up in just a second. Meanwhile, John sneaks around, carefully hiding from guards and hacking into locks. Once inside, he releases all the prisoners, and now he has to find Kyle among a panicking crowd, not knowing Kyle is in a separate cell. Back to Marcus, he wakes up and sees he's been completely repaired. Skynet uses Kogan's face to talk to him, explaining that his secret mission has always been to lure John and Kyle here, which he's achieved. It also asks him to be a soldier for the machine's cause, using clips of John mistrusting him to manipulate him. Furious, Marcus insists he's human and removes the chip from his head before smashing the computer screen. At that same time, John keeps looking for Kyle but instead is found by the robot TRIP, who isn't hurt by John's bullets or punches and keeps throwing John around the room. In the cell, Kyle is approached by a Terminator whose mission is to kill him and John. Star shows up and the Terminator gets distracted, so Kyle uses the chance to insert the piece of metal in the back of the robot's head, making it lose control and shoot in random directions while they run away. Further in the lab, they bump into John and they start moving together, so when TRIP comes after them, it destroys the Terminator to get it out of his way. John shoots grenades at TRIP but they only burn down his skin, so next he shoots at the wall and the trio escapes through the resulting hole. They end up landing in the Terminator factory, where they find the nuclear fuel cells that power the robots. Suddenly TRIP surprises them from behind and knocks them down, so Kyle quickly shoots back. The trio runs to the elevator, but John decides to stay to blow up the factory and sends the other two out. TRIP then begins fighting John, who isn't strong enough to fight such a powerful robot and soon gets subdued. When TRIP is about to kill him, Marcus shows up and begins fighting TRIP to keep him busy while John rushes to prepare fuel cells. At first Marcus offers a fair fight thanks to his cyborg parts, but TRIP is still stronger and begins beating him down, first burning his hand and then repeatedly hitting him with a block. Then TRIP detects Marcus hard and hits him in the chest to finally defeat him. At that moment the rebels arrive in helicopters to rescue Kyle and all the prisoners. Inside, John hears Kyle's voice asking for help, but it turns out to be TRIP using a recording. Trying to escape, John falls and hurts his shoulder but also recovers his weapon, which he uses to shoot a tank and release tons of molten metal on top of his enemy. Unfortunately, this isn't enough to stop TRIP, so John also shoots a coolant line that falls on the robot and makes it freeze as he scratches John's face. Afterward, John revives Marcus by using electrical conduits from the factory. This gives TRIP time to break free and impale John with a steel bar. Marcus grabs the steel bar and thrusts it through the neck of the TRIP, decapitating it easily. Then Marcus carries John out to meet with the rebels, and once everyone is flying away, John activates the explosives and finally blows up the entire facility. Later at the base, John is dying from his wounds, so Marcus decides to donate his heart to save John. Blair kisses him goodbye, and Marcus dies knowing he's cleaned his name.